Good evening, everybody.
Welcome to our Sunday Night Live. Thank you so much for being here with us.
And we are really excited. Woo! Let's tell us where you're at in the chat. So grateful that each and every one of you are here. Aloha. She's got me holding on to the end of the line. Where are they at, hon?
They're all from all over.
Miami, North Carolina, Michigan,
Ohio,
Missouri.
Can't see very well from over here. We're going to have to shout them out.
So excited to see our mods here. There's Sophia, Maui Girl, Laura,
Waldy, Teresa,
Mimi,
and Holly.
Everybody. So excited to have each and every one of you here. Aloha from the Shenandoah Valley.
Is John in chat?
I just saw Shenandoah go by. I thought it was John. West Florida, Australia. Top of the morning.
I honestly don't think people say that there.
What?
If you're from there, let us know in chat.
What are you talking about? Philly is in the house. New Orleans. And congratulations to Spain. Wow. What an amazing World Cup. We watched it. We watched it. Texas in the house. Melbourne, Florida. My dad used to live in Melbourne before he passed away. Okay. Honey, we've got an amazing show, yes?
We have a lot of information for you guys tonight, and we are looking forward to presenting it to you.
We sure are. And this young lady here has been digging, a little bit more into Nanos. What are we calling him anyway?
Take your pick.
I know, right?
Yeah.
He should be wearing an orange jumpsuit, quite frankly. But that said, because you found out not only some additional disturbing information, we thought we couldn't find out any more, but does it stop?
It doesn't seem to stop, and there seems to be quite a lot to choose from.
Yeah.
So we want to present this to you guys, and you guys, you make your own decisions about what you think of all this. Macon, Georgia, awesome.
We should call him Bozo, as Becky says. I agree. He's got clown shoes on, but this is serious stuff because the reason we want to dig into this even further and further is because at some point we have said from the very beginning, if a suspect is arrested in the Nancy Guthrie case, then the defense, if in any way, shape, or form Nanos is on a witness list or anybody that's connected with him on a witness list, i.e. he is number 2, guy, no pun intended, if that guy is on a witness list, did you like that little funny joke?
It was, I'm not surprised you made it, but okay.
Yeah. There is going to be some real cannon fodder for the defense.
It just all goes to his credibility or lack thereof. And if you're just joining us, we are talking about the Nancy Guthrie case, and we're going to be presenting some new information you may not have heard before about Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos.
Yep, let's go. And we agree with you 1,000%. So my first condolences to the citizens of Pima County. You know, you think you got a winner there, and unfortunately, there's some real problems. And you can see it not only in how the investigation's being handled and taken care of, but quite frankly, you guys haven't seen anything yet until an arrest is made. And once that happens, you know, you're going to have to put your seatbelts on. And quite frankly, you're going to have a 5-point restraint system, because it's possible that car could roll and everybody could be ejected. And so we're not doing anything that the defense isn't already going to do if a suspect is taken into custody. Because just as you're seeing in a lot of these high profile cases, when they run out of real evidence, i.e., you know, some other dude or something to that effect, well, then they start attacking the process. And when they start attacking the process, that's where, you know, they start attacking the officers. They start looking for what they call Brady materials, meaning, you know, they go into the officers' divisional files, their personnel files, and they start looking for information that could have been detrimental to their client, which is exculpatory evidence to the client, because, as you know, the courts are always concerned about, you know, the rights of the defendant. And, you know, that's our system today. Sometimes I agree with it. Sometimes, you know, you got to live with it. And that's how it rolls. But in this particular case, if you're new to our channel, we just ask that you subscribe. Just subscribe. That's it. That's all we ask. And you then share this with your social media networks, and, you know, you put it out there. And here's the reason why. Not only are you supporting this channel, but you also support the other families and victims that we get involved in. And we have some great news, obviously, that took place in San Diego recently with Maya Miliete. Her ex-husband, Larry, was found guilty of killing her. And as you know, Karen and I are very close with the family. We got involved early on. And for them, we are extremely, extremely proud of how they handled the totality of the situation, as well as justice was brought to that courtroom. Now let's pray and hope that Larry will give up where her body can be located. But they convicted him on a no-body homicide. So that's great work by the San Diego County District Attorney's Office. Summer Steffens, the DA down there, and you know, she's a hard charger, as you can tell. So that said, honey, why do you think this piece of the puzzle is so significant? Tell the audience what you're thinking.
So it's really important to know, for everybody who's been following the Nancy Guthrie case, it's really important to know this information about, he's really the guy in charge of the investigation, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos. The Pima County homicide detectives are lead in the case, but everybody is following under Sheriff Nanos. We know that. Now, the FBI is also obviously involved in the investigation, has been, let's call it since day 4, according to the FBI director, Kash Patel. according to Sheriff Nanos, they were involved earlier. I'm not buying that piece, but it's important to know, if you're following the case, what the background is to the full extent for Sheriff Nanos. We have to keep this in mind. It's really important as this case drags on and is still unsolved to the best of our understanding. They haven't made any arrests other than, Derek Colella, and okay, that's kind of separate. But right now, if you're wondering, is the case stalled? What's going on between the Pima County Sheriff's Homicide Task Force and the FBI? Well, knowing what we're going to be talking about is really important, because it really lays the foundation of where Sheriff Nanos is coming from. And you may have heard things like, well, Sheriff Nanos publicly said that he doesn't like the FBI. That was 10 years ago in the local Tucson media. But tonight we're going to kind of put it in context and give you guys more background information so you can make your own decision when you're following this case. So that's why I think it's important.
Yes, and I 1,000,000% agree, because we've heard about it, but we didn't really know a lot about it. And so leave it to my sweetheart. Those of you who don't know, she is an investigative journalist. She started way back in a couple of weekends ago, even though she's only 22, as you can tell. But she started in the LA Times, in boot camp in the newsroom at the LA Times. And then from there, her career took her to investigative journalism, covering mostly crime. And that's quite frankly how we met many, many years ago. I was afraid, working homicide, that I would see my cases, what they call above the fold. And of course, the suspect here was always behind the pen in her maiden name at the time. That was her coverage name. Anyway, that said, let's move forward and talk a little bit about what do we want to call him? Nanos?
I'm going to call him Sheriff Nanos.
Okay.
You can call him.
I'll call him
any
whatever.
number of things. You can, click the clown horn, whatever you want to do.
Okay, so let's set this up for the audience. Tell the audience where we're going here tonight.
So we went back to 2015, about 11 years ago, and took a look at the FBI investigation that was done into the Pima County Sheriff's Office. And what happened? This all happened under Sheriff Chris Nanos' leadership. Now, before we jump into this, I think it's important to kind of know the order of things. How long has he been a sheriff, et cetera. And he came into and out of office. So it's not like he's been there for 10 years straight. So here's the high level overview. Chris Nanos was appointed sheriff, Pima County Sheriff, in August of 2015. Were you going to say something?
Appointed.
Yes, appointed.
That's important to understand for the audience.
This is true. Okay, so let me back up just for a second. Chris Nanos in 2014 was the second in command under Sheriff Dupnick. And so when Dupnick retired in 2015, the Board of Supervisors appointed Chris Nanos to step into the sheriff's shoes midway through the year, August 1st, 2015, to replace the retiring sheriff. In 2016, Chris Nanos lost the election for sheriff because of this whole scandal that we're going to lay out for you tonight. So he lost the election to Mark Napier. That was 2016. In 2020, Sheriff Nanos ran again, but this time he defeated Napier in the sheriff's race. So that was 2020. In 2024, Nanos ended up winning re-election, but we can't forget he put his opponent, Sheriff's Lieutenant Heather Lapin, what I call under house arrest, AKA he put her on administrative leave for 3 weeks, in the 3 weeks before the election.
Now tell everybody what that means. I mean, for those who may not know it, maybe overseas in Australia or New Zealand or whatever.
So administrative leave means that she could not come into the sheriff's department and do her job.
Now do the math, right? Everybody, right, hon?
Yeah, it's outrageous.
Do the math.
Outrageous.
Your opponent,
Political opponent
in an election, running for the job that you want, because the sheriff is an elected position. The guy you're running against basically puts you in jail. He freezes you out of the election, even during the day that she was supposed to vote.
And the only reason he could even do that is because she worked in the sheriff's department.
Right.
If she had a job elsewhere, Nanos could have never extended his long arm of the law to affect her. But she worked under him in the sheriff's department. And by the way, that she sued him, and it's an unsettled lawsuit. It's still out there.
That is still going. That lawsuit is still pending. Now, Nanos won a lawsuit recently from an inmate in the jail who sued the Pima County Sheriff's Office for $1.3 million. But the court just threw that case out because the person suing is a inmate in the jail. And so don't let him, pull a fast one on you that just because that lawsuit got thrown out. Again, this goes back to the time where even he was in El Paso and they couldn't take him to the grand jury. So he's got some tremendous luck right now. But I think this Nancy Guthrie case, the luck's going to run out. It's coming. I can feel it. Go ahead.
Okay, so again, back to 2024, Nanos wins by a mere 481 votes. That's like a handful of votes.
481 votes because he kept his opponent.
He kept his opponent
from
going out and campaigning in the last 3 weeks.
Last 3 weeks.
And he's being sued over that.
Unbelievable.
Okay. Yeah. So here we are in 2026, right?
Yep.
The world gets to meet Sheriff Nanos February 1st, 2026, when Nancy Guthrie disappeared out of her home. The folks of Pima County have been dealing with him for a number of years prior to that. So do you want me to give the high-level overview of the case, or you want to walk us through it?
Let's walk everybody through. And by the way, this you get an idea how this guy operates by the way he gutted the department to anybody that opposed him. I mean, he gutted the homicide team. We're seeing that. He took the individuals like the Sergeant Cross from, I guess he's with the Deputies Association. He put that guy on a desk somewhere in the middle of the East Jabip.
And that's a lawsuit as well.
That's also a lawsuit.
Which we've reported on this channel before.
He hooks up all the streamers out in front of Nancy Guthrie's house, even though there were maybe 100 other media outlets. And once those media outlets left, he didn't think that, that citizen journalist existed. So he had them arrested. And 3 of those cases have already been tossed out and adjudicated, meaning 2 of them with prejudice and 1 without. So I can see some lawsuits on top of that coming because, that's a First Amendment violation from the word go. Now we get into this RICO thing. And when we talk about this RICO thing, this is a really serious problem. It's as serious as the situation in El Paso. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, because in this particular case, we're gonna lay it out for you. Even though he skated, this was the foundation of the relationship when the FBI showed up to help in the Nancy Guthrie case. This is what started the animosity and the non-cooperation and the word salad about, well, we notified the FBI, yada, yada, yet it was a task force member from his agency, a female. And so this guy is real good about triple talk, double talk, word salad talk. And I don't know if it's in the water or what, but in this particular case, the FBI investigated the Pima County Sheriff's Office and in a RICO scandal, meaning how roughly $500,000, $500,000 in seized forfeiture funds was quietly diverted for nearly 20 years, and why only one man was ever charged. And this is a really, really sad case.
And I'm a little spoiler alert. The man that was charged was Sheriff Nanos' number 2 guy at the time.
Yes. And his number 2 guy today had been also charged with a situation. He lost his job. He fought to get it back. He got it back, but tell the audience what he had to do.
And you know, I can never remember, is it Joe Harvey or Joe Cameron? I forget what his original last name was, but he came back, he got his job back, he changed his name, came back to the Sheriff's Department, and now currently he's the number 2 guy under
Nanos.
Under Nanos, but he got in trouble for excessive force as a sheriff's deputy patrolman a number of years ago.
So imagine that. His number 2 guy right now had to change his name to come back into the Sheriff's Department. And the guy over the Criminal Investigations Division, i.e. over the Nancy Guthrie case, has never worked a homicide. And his past is quite colorful or quite interesting as well. So this is the cast of characters that you have. Now, you be the judge. You tell us what your feelings are, what your thoughts are. Feel free to fire up the chat. But you can't make this stuff up. I don't care how hard you try. I have never seen a law enforcement agency in my couple of weekends around this business where it is so screwed up like this that everybody has a jacket and that they had been involved in some type of investigation on a federal level.
Well, when you say everybody, let's be 100% clear. We're talking about the top 3 people running the organization. This is not the rank and file.
No, I'm not talking about the rank and file. I'm talking about, those people with,
power,
butter bars and power. Yeah. Everybody in power. That's who I'm talking about. Now, this is really important to understand because when you hear the FBI director tell the world that, hey, they kept us out for 4 days. Well, Karen wanted to know, what are you talking about and why did that happen? And now we get into these 4 boxes about why this scandal matters. Because Nancy Guthrie has already paid the price. Because this was the scandal that Nanos held over the FBI's head. And this is the anger and the animosity that he holds towards them. And this is why within the first 48 hours, mistakes were made, not on top of the political decisions that were made and the political backbiting and infighting that was taking place. So bucket number 1, tell everybody about bucket number 1, Karen.
So the public funds that were misused, I guess, I have a problem with these words. I mean, we got to call it what it is. Nearly $500,000, that's $500,000 in RICO forfeiture money was diverted in just 5 years. It was part of a scheme that was running close to 20 years. And all this blew up under Sheriff Nanos' leadership. Now, if you want to know what RICO means, I'm going to make sure I have it right.
We'll get that on the next slide.
Oh,
that's okay.
Well, I was going to look it up.
Go ahead.
I got to find it. Hang on a sec. Okay. RICO stands for Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations.
Okay, so first of all, let's do the math. The FBI was looking at the Sheriff's Department for basically the same way they look at the mafia. That's what RICO is.
Right, because these were federal funds. These were federal funds that Pima County Sheriff's Department is in charge of using.
Right. And so bucket number 2, how many prosecutions came out of this?
Only one prosecution came out, and it was the Chief Deputy Chris Radtke. He ended up taking a misdemeanor plea, but he was charged with 7 felony counts. So that was really serious. Nobody else was charged, despite others being involved and having, I guess to some extent, widespread involvement. And go ahead.
Bucket 3, the political consequences.
Yeah, the fallout really helped Sheriff Nanos lose the 2016 election. He did get back in office in 2020, but he was in office. He was the sheriff in 2015, and within the first 6 months, you guys, within the first 6 months of his leadership, the FBI is at his door with a RICO investigation.
Do the math.
That's huge.
6 months of being elected sheriff, the FBI is sitting at your kitchen table wanting to know where $500,000 has just evaporated. Where's it at? What are you doing? Where's it going? So in bucket 4, why is that relevant today in this ongoing investigation? Because Nanos today remains the sheriff in 2026 amid new controversies now.
Yeah, a lot of them that have been stacking up.
His truthfulness in terms of his resume has now surfaced, as we know, during the Nancy Guthrie case. Perjury allegations have come forward from the Board of Supervisors. And there also are allegations of how he has handled this investigation and the criticism that has come along with that. So right now, he is on a very thin sheet of ice. And here we are, almost 7 months into this now, coming up, into searching for Nancy Guthrie. And that is the ongoing relevance in what we feel is important here. So again, a quick high-level overview. Who is this guy? He started in 1976, began with the El Paso Police Department. He rose steadily through the ranks after leaving El Paso after 37 allegations of time off, some of that for beating a prisoner and putting that individual into the intensive care unit with a flashlight, by the way, while handcuffed. And they actually took him to the grand jury, but the handcuffed individual was unable to testify against him, so he skated.
He narrowly escaped prosecution. Let's say it the way it is.
So let's look at the reality of that. Okay. The reality of that is back then, this guy was suspended 37 times. 37 times.
In 6 years.
One of those suspensions was for beating a prisoner with a flashlight, to the point where the district attorney said, that's criminal. Let's take him to the grand jury. Ladies and gentlemen, around this country, around the world, that's who's leading the Nancy Guthrie investigation. This guy is leading, I'm going to say it again, And Savannah, if you're listening, please talk to your people and get this guy out of the picture. Get him out of the picture. He lost his 2016 reelection amid the incident we're going to talk about tonight, the RICO fallout. Okay? But he won a rematch in 2020 and remains in office as of 2026. And so now let me back up to the very beginning. He was appointed sheriff in the very beginning. He wasn't elected. He took the position from a sheriff who resigned or
Retired.
retired.
No, he retired.
He retired. Okay. This guy oversees 1,500 plus department employees under his command right now. You don't think those folks are going to try to bend the law? Not all of them. But you don't think, and thank goodness that one deputy who went out there and talked to those citizen journalists and said, hey man, I'm under orders to do this. And thank goodness he put it in his report, because that is why the district attorney suspended those cases. There was no way on the earth that they were going to go after those individuals, because they knew it was on body camera and it was on video camera of what that deputy said. So what the deputy basically said was, my higher ups put me in a position of what they call under the color of authority. And that's civil rights violations. And I don't care who you are. If you're a dirty cop, you're giving folks like myself and many others a really bad look. And I'm glad that officer did the right thing by documenting it in his reports, and why the district attorney, to her credit, I have to give her credit, suspended those investigations. And why do I even bother with those concepts? Because this is on the heel of these types of violations, where the federal government comes in and does a RICO investigation. So what do you expect? There's a culture, is what I'm saying. There's a culture within inside of that agency that is driven by Sheriff Nanos. And we've experienced it. Karen and I have experienced it. And that's another conversation, but we'll get there. So what are the RICO and forfeiture funds? Karen, let's talk about the origin. Where did the money come from?
So money and property seized from criminals, excuse me, under federal RICO and civil forfeiture laws is then shared with local agencies. So that means that when they take in RICO money, it has to be spent basically on crime fighting.
Yep.
Do you agree?
Yeah, it has to be.
Okay, so the intended use, there's strict law on this. It is strictly used for policing, equipment, training, crime prevention, overtime. You have to use it. There has to be that direct benefit for crime fighting.
So you can't use it on parties, you can't use it on gifts, and you can't use it on personal benefits.
Yeah.
Okay, in any way, shape, or form. However, there was a loophole that the sheriff and others had been utilizing for many, many years. So give them a little high-level overview about what that loophole was.
So they routed funds through their nonprofit. It's the Sheriff's Auxiliary Volunteers account to sidestep federal limits. So what's the Auxiliary Volunteers? Those are basically the citizen volunteers who volunteer their time for no pay, and they work under patrol. Maybe they help with traffic or crowd control at events, or with patrol for certain certain situations. But these are citizens. these aren't even the reserve officers. These are just citizens. And there's the fund. They're called the auxiliary volunteers, and they have an account, and it's the duty and job of the sheriff to make sure that the monies that go in are spent correctly. And anyway, they routed this RICO money through that account. The FBI figured this out when they did their investigation. And I think it's also, I want to tell people that, so what did they do? Where did they spend the money? They bought personal items. They paid for awards ceremonies. And they bought items for 2 cafes that were run inside the sheriff's department. One's at headquarters, and the other one was at the jail. And these are for county employees. If you don't work, you can only go there and use it if you're with the sheriff's department, is my understanding. This isn't anything that the public could ever walk into the sheriff's headquarters and go to this little cafe. This was like for employees only. And I have to laugh. When I was looking at all this, digging it up, the name of the cafes is called Off the Record, the Exclusive Cafe.
You can't make that up.
You cannot make that up, right? So let me get this right. It's almost like Sheriff Nanos is using this kind of like a private country club. And they call it, at least they did, the Exclusive Club. I mean, you're a public servant. There shouldn't be anything exclusive about anything related to the sheriff's department. It's outrageous.
So essentially there are 2 cafes set up, if I hear you correctly. One in the jail and one at the sheriff's headquarters. Okay. These cafes are run by, who are the players here? Well, we'll get to that. Let's answer this.
Okay.
Let's go through this. So when does this kick off? November 2015.
I have to give kudos to the local newspaper in 2015. They did some investigative reporting. They filed public records requests, and they figured out that the money that was used to fund these cafes inside the sheriff's department, they were using RICO money. And it gets worse. The chief deputy Radtke allowed his niece, his relative.
Talk about nepotism.
Talk about nepotism in a public institution, not a private company.
No bids.
No bids, no nothing. It gets worse. He allowed his niece to run these 2 cafes rent-free. One of them didn't even have a health permit. And the equipment for these cafes was purchased with the RICO money. Huge, that's a crime in and of itself.
Caitlin Smith, the journalist here, she did a great job.
Yeah.
Digging. Go ahead.
And under no contract. So he gives his niece the ability to run these cafes and make money, not collect rent, and I'm sorry, this is the people's money. So these were run, that is like totally unheard of and completely illegal.
So if, again, let's always remember that as we keep going here, this is all going to ultimately tie into why this guy thinks he can get away with anything. However, that will change when an arrest is made. If you think about this right now, if we just do the math right now, right? All of us that have been following Nancy Guthrie, we want justice for Savannah, and we want justice for Nancy Guthrie. That's so important. Every single witness that comes up on the witness list, and it will also be Nanos, because Nanos responded the night she disappeared. So somewhere his name is written on a witness list that he entered the house that was a crime scene. And he, the next day, said, it's a crime scene. If I was the defense attorney, I can guarantee you I will have a subpoena in that guy's hand. I guarantee you I would put him on the stand and now go through his truthfulness, all of the things that we're pointing out. And then in front of a jury's going to go, wait a minute, what's going on here? And do they have the right guy? That's going to be the questions that will arise. And if we want to see how that looks or how it feels or, whatever, okay, just look what's happening in the Tyler Robinson case right now. They're complaining about a DA's daughter attending the event where Charlie Kirk was shot. Can you imagine if a defense attorney goes through all this stuff, what that's going to be like? So the best thing for anybody to do is get this case quickly, or at least try to find some type of federal nexus and get it out of the hands of the state attorney's office and into the hands of the U.S. attorney's office somehow. Unfortunately, right now, Nanos holds the cards because it occurred in his county. But this is right out of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And the mayor and the sheriff, remember? Where they're, doing the dance and the guys come in through the back. This is Nanos. That's his group. Number one, this starts in 2015. We'll call it Cafe Gate.
Yeah, and again, kudos to the local newspaper that dug this up and then printed their story, which came out in early 2016, I believe. November 2015, but they had subsequent stories. And so that is what kicked off the FBI probe.
Correct.
But of course, their investigators came in and dug deep and found it was far worse than what first met the eye.
Yeah, so the Arizona Daily Star investigative reporter, Caitlin, reveals that Chief Deputy Radtke's niece is running a cafe inside the sheriff's headquarters in the jail. Rent-free, no contract, as Karen has talked about, which led into step number 2, the spending. An audit was done, and it was discovered that approximately $30,000 was spent on kitchen equipment and renovations. So the news started asking questions. Well, wait a minute. They were actually being journalists, investigative journalists, and said, hey, wait a minute. How does the niece of the chief get these 2 cafeterias, and how does she get $30,000 to renovate all this new equipment, et cetera, et cetera? So that was the first claim that appeared in RICO funding. Then it was later walked back saying that, no, it didn't come from, the SAV account. It came from the general fund. Talk about general funds and why that's important.
Well, this piece is really critical because you had trusted Pima County Sheriff commanders. It was Nanos and it was Radtke. And when they were pressed by the local media, they said, yeah, it was RICO money, which was the case. That was the truth. But then once it became a scandal, then they lied, which this part just sticks in my craw. I mean, I can't handle when, elected officials and people with power lie blatantly. It's disgusting. They claim, no, it came from general fund. It was the general fund. Well, that was a lie. No, it wasn't. And by the way, general funds have to be used for public purposes. A cafe inside headquarters and a jail for the employees is not that's not public use. Public use are the Pima County residents. So I just think that's a really important point, because first, when they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, yes, it was RICO funds. They realized, oh, that's a bad look. Maybe we knew we were doing wrong. We got caught, and then they lied. And the media has them all on that, has their lies, in the paper and TV as well. So, there you go. That's who's running the sheriff's department.
Okay, so now we get into number 3. This is when an FBI investigation was launched. That type of reporting triggered a full FBI investigation into the broader misuse of RICO funds across the department. So what they started doing was looking at all of the line items in their budget, and then they did an audit on all those line items and wanted to know if the money was following the federal guidelines in terms of expenditures. You can't use federal money, i.e. they call it asset seizure funds. And let me give you an example. So let's say you stop a car with what they call a group called the HIDTA group. The HIDTA group is high impact drug trafficking. And in those HIDTA groups are officers that are assigned to that particular task force, just like the FBI violent crime task force that sheriff says, oh, I talked to the FBI. No, he's got an officer involved or officer assigned to that task force. Well, there's another task force called the HIDTA group. And because that area is what they call a HIDTA area, it's a high impact drug trafficking because it's a corridor, as well as, believe it or not, the 95 and the 65 on the East Coast, and then through Georgia as well, the 40, the 70, going cross countries, et cetera. All of those are what we call HIDTA corridors. Well, the federal government pays for task forces to police those corridors. Well, let's say you stop a car and you have a dog that is narcotics trained. And the dog does an air search around the car, and the dog hits on the car, i.e. there could be cocaine, fentanyl, whatever, in that vehicle. Well, that's probable cause now to search that car. So they go into the car. They end up arresting the individual because they find drugs, lots of drugs, hypothetically. All right. And let's say they find 2 bags of cash. And the dog then sniffs those bags, and the aroma of narcotics is also on that cash. So now the sheriff's department, under federal asset seizure laws, can say, that's our money. We are seizing this money and putting it into evidence. They can also seize the car that the individual was driving. So not only do they get the drugs, the suspect, they get the car, and they get the money. And that goes into federal asset seizure rules. Well, the sheriff's department gets a percentage of that, of all of those assets. So you ever heard of the auctions, federal auctions, where they're selling cars and that kind of stuff? Those are the type of cars that they're selling. They're selling cars that were used in criminal, in crimes. That's a good thing, actually. Okay. because it helps fund law enforcement agencies, smaller agencies, et cetera, that don't have a lot of money to combat, the drug epidemics. So the program's a great program unless you give the money back to a sheriff in Pima County who puts it in a reserve fund for citizen volunteers. That money is supposed to go into the general fund when it comes back to the agency. And that money then at that point has to be utilized for training, for equipment, like, new sirens, whatever. That's where it's supposed to go. But the Sheriff's Department didn't do that. They opened up 2 cafes. And it was one of the niece, as we're talking about here, okay? And she didn't have permits. She didn't need anything.
No contract.
No contracts, nothing.
They never bid it out to other vendors. They never gave other vendors an opportunity to get the contract and actually operate the cafes.
Right. So which is number 3 here. The FBI, rightfully so, it's their responsibility to oversee those funds and make sure they're properly being spent. And so they go and they do an internal records audits. And they discover that RICO money had been funneled through the SAV accounts for years, almost 20 years.
Yeah, wow. That's shocking.
Enabling spending that violated federal laws. Now, why is this important, or how does it implicate Nanos? Well, when Nanos was elected sheriff, he now was responsible for managing those funds. And he, rather than call the FBI and say, hey, I need to let you know I'm shutting these funds down because I noticed some, peculiarities here, he kept it going and kept ciphering money off into these funds.
And I think it should be noted that Nanos requested more than $200,000 in transfers to that account that the FBI ended up investigating. So he was doing this to the tune of $200,000 worth of things like,
what was he spending on?
It's personal items,
parties,
paying for award ceremonies, within the department, and $30,000 of that went to the cafes. Can we talk a little bit about his number 2 guy?
Yeah, of course. Hit him.
Okay. So the axe really fell on the number 2 guy, this Chief Deputy Chris Radtke. He was in charge of this particular task for admin. Corvette Cafe. Yeah, that's what Nanos should have named it. That's a good one. Former Chief Deputy Radtke, he was originally indicted on 7 felony charges, including 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering and 6 counts of theft concerning programs receiving federal funds. And we already said to the tune of $500,000. He was allowed to make a plea deal. And so he ended up pleading guilty to 3 misdemeanor counts of theft of public money.
So how many counts did he have?
7 felony charges.
So this guy gets 7 charges, felonies.
Yeah.
And he's allowed to plead down to how many?
3 counts of misdemeanor.
3 misdemeanors. Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So in May of 2017, he got 1 year probation, a $3,000 fine, 100 hours of community service, and this last one's my favorite, a stipulation prohibiting him from seeking employment in law enforcement or with Pima County. a la Joe Cameron / Joe Henry, or Joe Henry / Joe Cameron. I can't remember. Who was a guy who got in trouble. He got fired from the sheriff's department. We already talked about this if you're just joining us. And he was allowed to, he fought it in court, changed his name, and 2 years later came back and got rehired with the Pima County Sheriff's Department after basically being bounced out. And now he's the number 2 guy under Sheriff Nanos, head of the Nancy Guthrie investigation.
Which sheds some interesting light on one U.S. senator who showed up with a box of donuts. And I went back and I watched his press conference recently where he made a very interesting comment. And that comment was, I hope the sheriff and the FBI can work together. And he said it in that press conference out at the curb when he just came out after bringing the donuts in. And that was Senator Kelly, the senator who Savannah called the day her mother disappeared. So you have the highest political forces in the United States, including Trump on an airplane, weighing in, including the FBI director weighing in, and a U.S. senator on the scene. Every one of these guys has to know about Nanos. If they don't, they do tonight. You got a problem. Because let's look at the diversion scheme for a second, and then we'll jump right back here, honey. Okay?
Okay.
Number one, here was the 4 steps to how they pulled this off. First of all, there had to be seizure money. And that RICO forfeiture money, again, is seized from criminal cases and approved for transfer to the Sheriff's Department. So the money is grabbed in the field, like I talked about. It goes through a process of examination. A case is usually adjudicated through the U.S. Attorney's Office, and then some of that money is approved to come back to the Sheriff's Department. Once that money comes back, it goes into step number 2. It should have been moved into a general line item in the general fund. Instead, they moved it to the Sheriff's Auxiliary Volunteer Fund. Essentially, what they were doing is trying to launder the money and hide it.
And be able to spend it without stringent federal requirements.
Yeah.
It was their workaround.
Right. Because
their dubious workaround.
The fund that they put it into, that Karen discovered, was a nonprofit account. Now think about that. This law enforcement agency, the money's supposed to buy stuff to keep the sheriffs, to keep prisoners, to keep the citizens of Pima County safe. That's why the federal government gave them back the money. But instead, they put it in a nonprofit account, which they tried to hide it. Okay, so that put them on the radar for bypassing the laws, the rules. Number 3, inside the SAV account, federal restrictions no longer applied. Basically, they hid the money
and did what they wanted to do with it.
So here's my question. What else is he hiding? Because that's what the defense is going to ask. Sheriff Nanos, let's go into the future. He's on the stand on the Nancy Guthrie case. Because you can bet the defense is going to argue to the court, this is relevant. This information is relevant to the honesty, the integrity of the sheriff's department and the totality of this investigation for whoever that person's going to be at the defense table. And the defense is going to argue, Your Honor, this is exculpatory potentially for under the, my client's right to a fair trial. And we want to know, because one of those questions is going to be, isn't it true, Sheriff Nanos, you hid this money in the Sheriff's Auxiliary Volunteer account, a nonprofit account, which was a loophole to the federal government asset seizure funds? And he's going to answer no, because that's what Nanos does. But will a jury believe him? That's what I'm worried about, because the second piece of that's going to be, hey, what else did you hide? Why didn't you take the mat? Because you knew, didn't you, that it wasn't my guy. And you would not have, and you didn't find his DNA on that mat. So you left it. Isn't that true, Sheriff? No, that's not true. But a jury's going to decide that, because the number 4 piece here was concealment. And just like this investigation, okay, a proper paper trail was made, and that at this point, they made it look like the money supported legitimate volunteers and crime prevention work. So basically, they made a story up.
They knew they were doing wrong, and they covered it up.
The sheriff, just like his resume, allowed it to continue on under his watch, under his leadership in that agency. And this is why we understand when he reads things like, well, I got to make sure I have talking points correctly for the family. What? This is his MO, everybody. It really is. This is his MO. Thoughts, Karen?
I mean, there's a pattern. This guy has left a pattern throughout his career.
I've never seen anything like this. And we're going to we'll have Gary and John on, to talk about this stuff in a deeper sense. But what else do you have on your side?
So, I mean, this is kind of a side point, but again, it speaks to Sheriff Nanos' mindset. When the newspaper stories came out, of course, they sought quotes from him and Chief Deputy Radtke as well. And I want to read to you what Sheriff Nanos said. In defending his use of RICO money just for the cafes. Now, this was before the FBI probe was finished. So it had just started or was about to begin. And so Sheriff Nanos said that the cafes that were run inside headquarters and the jail provided employees with a necessary service. He said, quote, "We just said, this is what we want. Inexpensive, hot, and quality food. Here's my take. Relatives involved and all that, I would be more concerned if someone in the department was making money on this deal," end quote. Well, P.S. Radtke's niece did make money. She was running these operations rent-free, so she kept the money that she made. So, that was a lie. And Nanos said because the department wasn't looking to make money from the cafes, he didn't see the need to seek bids from various vendors. But as we just said, Radtke's niece was profiting from the businesses.
So he double-talked it.
He absolutely, totally double-talked it.
I mean, he knows where that money should have gone. That's the problem here with him. Go ahead.
Now, I want to underscore how important this investigation was and the results. So we said earlier in 2016, the sitting sheriff who was appointed, again, if you're just joining us, Sheriff Nanos was appointed mid-year 2015 when the outgoing sheriff retired. The Board of Supervisors had appointed him. So for the 2016 election, because of this RICO scandal, he lost the election. So who did he lose it to? Mark Napier became the sheriff. And after Radtke got to plead out to the 3 misdemeanors and got what everybody viewed as a lenient sentence, Napier asked the state attorney general to investigate, to do their own investigation as sheriff. He had that. He had every right to do that. So the state AG investigated, and they came to the same conclusion that the FBI came to. So the state AG declined to file state charges against Radtke or Nanos. And but Mark Napier, again, the sheriff at the time, said that Radtke and there was a third guy, the former chief of staff. His name was Brad Gagnapane. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that. The 3 of them, Radtke, Gagnapane, and Nanos, concocted an elaborate scheme to hide the illegal use of the RICO money, which Chris and I just laid out. In June of 2016, Gagnapane unalived himself.
Now, think about that. I mean,
he was one of 3 that it came out that they were being investigated. He unalived himself in June of 2016.
You have a human being taking his own life because of something that he's involved in with Nanos. And this was a staff member.
Chief of staff, yeah. And you want to hear something else? He had retired from the Sheriff's Department, and Sheriff Dupnick brought him back in. And when Dupnick retired, Nanos brought him in as chief of staff. So it's just really sad.
This is crazy.
Yeah. And nothing happened to Nanos.
When Karen told me this, I was like, you got to be kidding me. This guy's like a train wreck.
Nanos.
But
yeah,
that guy had a family, and Nanos hasn't missed a beat. That's why I'm so hard on this guy. He actually was involved in an incident. Not only did he almost take somebody's life, but somebody around him took their own life. Is that the kind of sheriff you want, Pima County? Is that the person you want to keep electing in your county? Is that the person you want investigating Nancy Guthrie? An 84-year-old woman asleep in her house? Is that the guy you support? There's no excuses for this. Absolutely none. And at the end of the day, you know, what happens to this guy? He drives to the country club in his Corvette, causes a ruckus over there, by the way, every weekend, every Friday and Saturday night. And I know the name of the country club. I'm not going to name it. But trust me, he knows that I know. And every Friday and Saturday, according to my sources and according to my intel, the guy's a drunk. And he causes a whole bunch of problems because he can. Because he can. But so let's remind the public of the key events in the last 11 years. In the last 11 years. 2015, the Star Cafe story is published and the FBI begins an investigation. By the way, this slide would be blown up in a courtroom in Nancy Guthrie's case. The reason I'm showing it is so the U.S. Attorney's Office can prepare for it. So there's no surprises. No surprises. In 2016.
Well, again, if you're just joining us, we made this point. We'll go back to that slide. 2015, August 1st, 2015 is when when Chris Nanos was appointed sheriff. Again, this guy's in office. And again, he wasn't elected in 2015. He was appointed because the previous sheriff retired. This guy is at the helm 6 months, and there's a major FBI investigation into his leadership and the department. 6 months on the job.
Wow.
You can't make this up.
Can't make it up. Okay, so 2016, Chief of Staff Brad, he takes his
he unalives
life.
himself.
Yep.
During an active probe. September of 2016,
Radtke.
Radtke, I was going to just say his title. Is it Chief Deputy? Chief Deputy Radtke, he's indicted on federal felonies, and that was for the $500,000, and he resigns. They allow him to resign. Okay. And then November of 2016, Nanos loses the re-election. Gee, what a surprise, with the RICO investigation as the huge factor in that. Good. Thank you, Pima County residents. Thank you. Thank yourselves. Yeah, you know. So in February of 2017, Radtke pleads to 3 misdemeanor theft counts. And in May of that year of 2017, he's sentenced to 1 year's probation plus a $3,000 fine. No jail time. No nothing. No federal prison, no jail time, no nothing. And then in 2020, Nanos wins a rematch against Mark Napier and returns as sheriff. Oh boy.
So the question is, how is this going to play into the Nancy Guthrie investigation? Why is this relevant? Okay. Why is this relevant? Well, there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. First of all, the key figures. Nanos is still here. All right. He's still here.
He's the only one who survived that scandal, Chris.
Yes.
He's the only one of these 4 players.
And that means, again, he's going to be the target of attack from defense counsel if they get a suspect in custody. But it also opens up a wider gap of questioning. And that's the investigative motives. Why was the FBI stonewalled?
Why was the house, after it was returned so quickly, had to be reopened up for the FBI to come in and do their investigating of Nancy Guthrie's house?
Yeah, and the way he described that was absolutely ludicrous speed from Spaceballs. The agents, they want to do what they do. What? What does that mean? They want to do, something to that effect. They want to do what that means or whatever they do when the FBI wanted to come back. All right. There is something going on behind the scenes here that I have been worried about. You have been worried about it. John, Gary, Dr. Gary, we all talked about it. About the 2 trains that left the station. And those of you who need a refresher course on that, you can go back in our playlist right as this thing started, one of the first couple of videos we did. We figured out right away the animosity that was behind the scenes. You could feel it. You could see it in the room. The next morning, when there was nobody from the FBI standing behind Nanos and his homicide guy, which had zero experience, by the way. Remember? He even told them that. He even told the world that the sergeant who was in charge of that investigation, leaning up against the wall back there, he turns and tells everybody, be nice to him. He's been up all night. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, they're not collecting any of the evidence that should have been collected. They're doing probably fundamental basics, photographs, measurements, collection of swabs, collection of, video, etc. But it explains why that park's not important, why the correlation potentially between Annie's place of business and a suspectology, because I don't see any connection between Nancy Guthrie and the guy on the porch. I see a bigger connection between the guy on the porch and other family members. I see all of those things. Karen's got to sneeze. She just wrote on the notepad, please mute me. I have to sneeze.
And then I couldn't.
Okay, then she couldn't sneeze. She's got a little cutie sneeze too. Me. One of those sneezes.
You just got so off topic.
Okay. I see a bigger connection between porch guy and somebody else in correlation with the family.
Wait, what do you mean you don't see a correlation between porch guy and Nancy?
Well, he knows obviously she's there, but there's more of a connection to the house than it is to Nancy Guthrie as a whole. There's something there. He just took her as a means to an end. As a means to an end. Evident of the fact that, he did all the pre-surveillance, a lot of those things going down. He took all the high risk levels, coming into the environment and knowing that neighborhood. This person is somewhere in that Tucson area.
Then why the heck are they not looking for him?
That's my point.
I don't get it.
Yes, no, that's a great point, hon. That's what I'm trying to process as well with many others, is the fact that you just don't show up and kidnap an 84-year-old woman and then say, okay, our play's Bitcoin. Well, nobody knew what the heck in the family anyway that I'm aware of to date. How are we going to pay them in Bitcoin? What is this? And then the FBI was like, well, we can't tell you what to do, and we're not going to tell you what to do, but we recommend not paying it. And then, of course, all this other noise, and I've called it noise, the notes and all this other craziness. I think this is a lot simpler. That guy came to that front porch with a mission, and that mission was to get her out of the house, and then plan B was in motion. And however that would have sorted through who gets what, who drives, etc. I think there could be three people. Porch guy, the driver of the car, and somebody that's going to guard and babysit Nancy before she passed away. And I think, and I've said this from the beginning, Karen, behind the scenes, meaning at our house in our own private conversations, I thought she was deceased within 36 hours. And the other question is then, okay, what are the other possibilities? What are the other theories? And of course, we get all of this other stuff that I have pounded on here on this channel. But it makes sense where the lack of transparency from Nanos comes from. Why he's not having weekly updates on the steps in the investigation. Why he's not telling the public that he's no longer the reason he's no longer talking to the family. Why isn't he talking to the family? What's going on there? Why did he impound their car? What's going on there? Why did he go over to their house and take photographs? What's going on there? Why did he download their phones? What's happening in that? Why aren't you going to her place of employment and finding out if there's a correlation in any way, shape, or form with somebody that could have come across with Annie? Why aren't you doing that? And why did you say everybody was cleared when your homicide folks? Why did you broadside them? Why did you do that? Well, that becomes a lot clearer when you understand his MO. He surrounds himself with the type of people that are not going to ask questions.
And that will perhaps keep his secrets.
Including the media. KVOA. Why did they move the memorial to KVOA? Why didn't the suspect send a letter to KVOA, but instead sent it to the competitors? Savannah worked at KVOA. If this was about Savannah, then why not send it to her employer, her past employer, where they have the most intimate knowledge about her? Why are you sending it to the competitors and now to TMZ and all of that, the entertainment company? Maybe they know why. The person that sent the letter. How can you trap the IP address instantly on Kalella, but you can't figure out the messaging board that sent the ransom notes? The sheriff said there were more arrests coming recently. Was that just another lie?
Weeks ago, he said that.
Was that just another lie? I don't know. And if so, why would you lie to the public about these kind of things? Why would you do that? Because you surround yourself with people that would do it for you. And one of these people that you surrounded yourself took his own life from the pressure, from the guilt, from the shame. But you have no shame. And nobody's ever really pinned you down because you duck and weave and all this other stuff. And you know what? Nancy Guthrie's going to pin you down. Nancy Guthrie will pin you to the mat. And it will probably be a TKO. If you think it's bad now, Sheriff Nanos, just wait. Because right now you're in round one actually round two, because you screwed up the crime scene at your leadership. You screwed up arresting streamers where you said the DA was on board. Apparently, you missed that part. It's called the Constitution. But then again, you're not really concerned with that type of stuff because with the RICO money you were spending, you held award banquets.
Yeah, this is interesting. They had their annual awards banquets in luxury hotels. They paid for expensive meals, jazz and magic acts, tuxedos, and trinkets. I wonder what the trinkets were.
I bet you they're little bobbleheads of Nanos.
I don't know if you could give those out to people. It's crazy. They also spent money on promotional items. They spent over $57,000. $57,000 on trinkets and giveaways over 7 years, obviously with no clear crime prevention purpose. So that's just like money out the window. Crazy. We already talked about the cafe costs.
My favorite is the other examples.
Let's see. They bought model airplanes, restaurant bills. So they spent money at restaurants. They bought money. Microwaves and rush shipping. Are you kidding me? Personal and department items all funneled through that SAV account. It's not funny. I mean, I laughed, but this is really serious. Yeah, and no flyers of Nancy, no flyers of Porch Guy, and no seemingly community effort to try to identify Porch Guy and get to the bottom of this case.
Yeah, and I love this idea. The detectives investigating this case are not Nanos. I completely agree with you, 1,000%.
But here's the problem.
Go ahead.
You go.
Well, the problem is actually Nanos gets the last word because they have to report back to the command staff, and Nanos gets to override anything he feels like he wants to override.
A guy who's never worked a murder case in his entire career.
Evident of the fact they left a mat.
The doormat outside Nancy's house.
You can't make that up. You can't make that up. Who made that decision? It wasn't an experienced investigator. Every experienced investigator I've had on our program has said, why'd they leave the mat?
They also said they would have probably taken the door, literally.
And the fixture for the camera.
Nest camera, exactly.
Yeah, just weirdness. That wouldn't have happened. But it did under his watch. Again, all of this is under his watch as well. So he knew crime was taking place, and he let it happen.
I also want to remind people that the Board of Supervisors called him in, if you guys remember, just a couple months ago. Should I hold off if we're still going through this? Okay.
Go.
And I just want to remind everybody, in May, just 2 months ago, the Board of Supervisors asked the State Attorney General to investigate a charge of perjury against Nanos. This was regarding one of the lawsuits that was filed against him for his unscrupulous actions, retaliatory actions towards deputies and people under him, and that he allegedly lied under oath about his past record. So that's still sitting at the AG's office on somebody's desk. We haven't heard anything. We don't know when we're going to hear something, but that's 2026. That's the serious thing for this year. We just took you back to 2015. That's 11 years ago. And now, this guy hasn't had a clean record since he's been in office. We're enumerating all of the things that he has done in office.
So the legal outcomes and the criticisms from the public, right? I think we have, just as bystanders looking through the window, are going, okay, something's wrong here. Because we woke up one day with national headlines that Savannah Guthrie's mother was kidnapped out of her house. Those headlines haven't changed. She's still missing. And we know she's not in her house. So an investigative analysis has to refocus your resources away from the house and into the house. How did the suspect determine points of entry, routes? How many times did the suspect come into the geographic region? And if so, what type of tool would have been utilized? A truck, a car, a bulldozer? I mean, I'm making that up, of course, but those are the kind of things now where investigative resources have to be focusing, while simultaneously you're waiting for a DNA / result of some sort. But you're still going to have that unknown sitting out there. And you're going to have to answer that unknown. All right. You're going to have to answer why a 30-06 fragments when it strikes a human being. Because all the conspiracy theorists are going to jump on it and go, no, that's impossible. There's no way. No way. Well, this case is going to have that kind of problem times 10. Times 10. So you've got to check all the boxes to say that you did it. Meaning you've got to go to all the gun stores and show pictures, even though there's not a sophisticated criminal in the world that would have pulled this off by going to a legal gun store, signing, federal paperwork and getting themselves on video, buying the gun, and then wearing it on the front porch at Nancy Guthrie's house. I would have caught that guy the next day. And you notice they haven't caught that guy. Nobody on that list that the FBI went to all the gun stores. That was to check the boxes. Check, check, check. Okay, yeah, we did this. Yeah, we looked into all the people that may have had a connection somehow to the house somewhere for the victim risk continuum. No, I'm not going to go that way tonight. However, now, if we look at the totality of this thing right now, here we are still talking about her, which we should. Everybody should be still talking about her because, you see, the sheriff wants it to go away. Evident the fact that we were on site and there wasn't a flyer, there wasn't anybody talking about Nancy Guthrie in any way, shape, or form. When I walked into the Circle K store, she looked like a deer caught in the headlights, the clerk. When I asked her some questions about, hey, so tell me about the Nancy Guthrie case. And, how much video did the authorities take out of this store? And she looked at me really, just, oh. I was like, a lot, huh? And we kind of chatted for a couple of minutes. But I didn't see a single poster of a picture of Nancy and or the guy on the porch at their store, which is less than 0.5 of a mile away from Annie's house and 2.0 tenths of a mile from Nancy's house. Not a single flyer.
Nothing throughout the whole city. Even in the sheriff's department lobby, which we went to, there was nothing about the Nancy Guthrie case. And that's in the Sheriff's Department headquarters?
Nothing. Zero. And then we drove on the Interstate 10 looking for the, quote, billboard. Okay.
Never saw it.
We didn't see it. We drove up and down that interstate.
Corridor.
Didn't see it. And by the way, that kind of thing is, quite frankly, at this juncture, useless in terms of the billboard. You should have the suspect on that billboard, because that guy's still out there.
With the $1.2 million reward reminder for people as incentive.
That's the guy we want to be looking for. And, you know, I talked to a couple of streamers. And guess what? These guys and gals, they're out there. And they flooded the parks. They, you know, I saw some guys talking to, you know, where they're handing out Narcan in the parks and people are coming up to the table and he's showing, you know, pictures of the suspect. Good for him. And then Karen discovers that Nanos had disassembled his street teams, his direct patrol teams. And there's only one direct patrol team. And so then we got hold of, as you guys know, Tucson PD and said, hey, did any of their guys get hold of your teams over there in Tucson? It's called Bravo teams. Did you guys correlate and talk about the suspect that's looking here? And what did they tell us?
They've never been contacted by Pima County regarding the Nancy Guthrie case.
You can't make this stuff up. That's police work 101. Police work 101, 101. Okay. So what are the legal and the public outcomes and the criticism? I think the criticism is important because it motivates politicians. That's what criticism does. It doesn't motivate the cops. They're already moving, meaning the ground level troops. They're going 150 miles an hour. But the politicians, those that, you know, wear the shiny little stuff up here, and, you know, of course, they don't do anything wrong, they get motivated. And it's not by bringing them a box of donuts. It's by citizens picking up the phone and calling their offices and saying, hey, Senator Kelly, yeah, did you know all about Sheriff Nanos and the RICO case? And did you know somebody involved in that unalived themselves? Were you aware of that when you brought the box of donuts? You see, politicians don't want bad press. They don't like it. But sometimes it's necessary. Because when good people do nothing, evil strives forward. And right now, there is a complacency here to the public. The public can help find the suspect in this case. And just like Sebastian Rogers, I talked to Seth a couple years ago, who is now suing the Sheriff's Department. They just filed a lawsuit. And one of the things I could not understand even back then, and Seth and I have had many private phone calls, which I'm not going to reveal here without his permission. But the one thing I told him was a clarity of focus on, you're at work on video, right? He goes, yes. And my question to him was, did the sheriff clear you knowing that you were at work? And he said, they won't talk to me. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Can you imagine being the father of a missing child, knowing that you were at work when your child went missing, and that they have video of you at work at the jail, and the sheriff not clearing you as a person of interest? Have we lost our minds? So what happens legally? What happened? Radtke was indicted on multiple felonies. He pled out to 3 misdemeanors. That's a sweet deal.
Yeah. No jail time. 1 year probation, $3,000. No prison time.
None. U.S. Attorney called it a just outcome. With a box of donuts.
That's part of the problem, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, we have to see it and call it as it is. That's reality.
But to the public, that was seen as a slap on the wrist.
Yeah. And why no one was prosecuted?
Now, why only 1 out of the 3 were prosecuted? And 1 goes on to become sheriff again.
Admissions that superiors were involved. People admitted that the upper echelon knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had $500,000 misused with minimal accountability.
And 0 payback to the public other than that $3,000 fine for the 3 misdemeanors. I think the public got screwed on this.
So is it okay, Pima County, citizens of Pima County, is it okay that you have 2 cafeterias still functioning and that you have an 84-year-old woman that disappeared? Is it okay? I hope not. I don't think you feel that that is something that's okay. But thank goodness for good journalists. Thank goodness for Caitlin. She did a great job. And thank you, honey. I know you did a lot of work on this over the last week or 2.
Thanks. It's my job. Thank you, Rorik.
I don't follow many channels, but I always make time for yours. I truly appreciate the professionalism. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Respect and diplomacy you bring to every discussion. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much. You're very, very kind. Project grant, $3.5 million awarded to Pima County Sheriff, effective 7/1/24. Check it out.
Thank you, Denise.
Boom. We will. Thank you.
Thank you, Bella.
Bella.
Thank you, Judith. We appreciate it. Tiff Kitty Cat says, with all this corruption, think about the quid pro quo going on. Who is he covering up for that he owes?
It's a great question. Wow. That's great comment. Free Bob.
Thanks, Eric.
Bob's had a knee surgery, so he's out. Please share this. Thank you, Teresa. We agree.
Sapphire Eyes says, I honestly think this is way deeper than what is already unbelievable than what you have already discovered about the past. I think there are more current things going on that will be his undoing. My theory. Thoughts?
You know what? I would not disagree with that. I based on what we know about the past so far, it's obviously a predictor of what the future is going to hold. Absolutely.
Thank you, Sue. We question it. We have the same question. Why does he continue to get away with it?
Because what we need to do, the power of this platform and the people to pick up the phone and call your senator's office. That gets things done.
If you're in Tucson.
In Tucson. That gets things done. Will, we looked for you and I can't see that you were blocked. I don't know what happened, and I know it was a mistake, by the way, by one of our mods who rectified it almost immediately, but I will definitely keep looking. And I apologize that that happened. She told us behind the scenes she made a mistake, and it was not intentional. So please understand us, because I know you've been with us for quite some time. It was an accident.
Thank you, True Bayou. Thank you so much, Chris and Karen. This is affirming to hear what the independent media is seeing, the Mark and Shark family, for Nancy.
Awesome.
Thank you. Rescue staggering toward slaughter. If you say, does not he who weighs the heart perceive it? Does not he who guard your life know it? Will he not repay anyone according to what they have done? Proverbs 24:11-12.
Yes.
Thank you, Sapphire Eyes.
Yes.
Joan Marie says, is it even possible to get justice for Nancy?
Yes.
Chris, what do you think about that?
I think yes, you can still, they can still win, but it's going to be messy. This one's going to be a lot of smoke and mirrors, and it's going to be stinky, for lack of a better term.
What do you mean? What do you mean exactly?
We're in a transition here in our justice system. And I'm only speaking from, starting this game in 1982. And a lot of you don't know, but I'm still actively involved in a lot of different things. I'm not retired. That's the bottom line. Am I retired?
I tell Chris he will never retire. He's got one of those brains that doesn't shut off. And I don't ever see him retiring and like playing golf 3 days a week. I don't see it. His brain needs to be fed. And I think, look, this is his passion, helping victims, trying to solve cases, providing education to people on what goes into a homicide investigation. And he's been doing it for a long time. And I think he's going to continue to do it for a long time.
And when we think about why, I think it's important that we recognize there's a shift taking place, not only in our culture or our society, but even within the criminal justice system. The word accountability is that line is being blurred again. And we go through this as societies, and history will tell us in the world that there are shifts within the rules and the rule of law constantly throughout historical cycles. One day, the social scientists will all be gone, in my opinion. They're going to look back at our time and they're going to scratch their heads. And they're going to say, what the heck were they thinking? Now, the good news is the shifting has taken place more towards this dynamic with social media that has completely taken the line of right and wrong out of the equation. Can you hand me that pink highlighter? Let me give you an analogy of what I mean. And this is my 2 cents. It's not even worth 2 cents. But I really believe this is where we are in our society. We just had a mayor in New York, for an example, who said they're going to arrest a world leader if he comes to the city. Okay. this is cuckoo talk. And here's the reason why. Let's just use a simple analogy of two cars driving on a road. This pink line represents a series of arguments that took place in a civilized legislative session where people argued about, well, we want the line solid, or we want, and the other said, no, we should have them broken. Okay. And they argued. And then somebody said, okay, I'm going to approve this bill that says there's going to be a law, a vehicle code law, that says you cannot cross this line either way unless there's certain reasons to cross that line. And the reason for that was to prevent two cars from crossing the line simultaneously and striking each other head on. So the civilized culture said, no, we need a line that says, you stay on your side, I'll stay on my side. Well, our society right now has said, you know what? Do what you want. Whenever you want to, however you want to. It doesn't matter. You know, you want to do whatever, that's up to you. You do that. You be like that. You yada, yada, yada. So what we've done is we've now, as a society, have successfully erased that line. We have made that line non-functional. How do we know? How do we know? Because anybody can go anywhere and do anything if they feel that way. Even Buddy. Okay.
That was Buddy, the dog.
Why is this dangerous? Because lines have consequences. Social lines have consequences. Social behavior has consequences. Let me give you an example. These are just two symbols. This symbol says, over here, you're not like us. It's the same with this symbol. You're not like us. In this group think. Well, the top signal or the top, we know what that is. But do you know what the bottom one is? The bottom one was for academics, those who were gay, gypsies. Actually, there was a list, about 100 different categories. And there's a great line in the book, A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, where he talks about, I came to understand that life was predicated upon the point of a finger. And Viktor Frankl describes how he steps off the train in Auschwitz and he looks down and he sees an SS officer standing there with his arms crossed like this. And as he got in line, he had his manuscript of this book called A Man's Search for Meaning. And as he was getting closer to this SS officer, he saw that people behind him and people in front of him were arbitrarily being pulled out of the line by other people. And when he got up to this officer, he reached out and he shook his shoulders and his manuscript dropped out. And he said, "What is that?" He said, "That's my life's work. It's a book that I'm writing." That book, by the way, became A Man's Search for Meaning. And he said, "No, not anymore." And he pointed. The rest is history. There were millions of people that did nothing until that man got the power to point. Don't ever give up your power to allow somebody else to point your life. Don't do it. Because a wolf in sheep's clothing is very dangerous. Extremely dangerous. And that's why I run on these guys like Nanos, because that guy is dangerous. If he's willing to beat somebody with a flashlight, what would he do if he had you in his jail? Those are the kind of people that, there's an old saying we've learned by sad experience, that it's the nature and disposition of almost all men. As soon as they gain a little authority, they will immediately begin to exercise unrighteous dominion upon the souls of those around them. I used to have a card in my shirt pocket underneath my badge. And I would break that card out and read that I was no better than the contacts and the citizens I was serving. And I had a servant's mentality. This guy doesn't have a servant's mentality. A lot of law enforcement officers are being judged today because of groupthink. And it's not right. There are many, many tens of thousands of law enforcement agencies. There's actually 13,000 law enforcement agencies across the country. And there are thousands of officers within those agencies that even look at one Nanos and go, "Get him out of here. Get him out of here." We've got to get back to that mentality and put that line back. And that means we have to support our law enforcement the right way. And that line should be blue, not pink. And when we see that, we need to thank them. We need to thank our soldiers. We need to thank our firefighters. We need to get back to sanity in our classrooms in this country. We need to be thankful that we live in America. We need to be thankful that we have the breath of life and that we can make a difference. One person can make a difference. Each one of us together as one, just one person can make a difference. You know, as President Kennedy said, you know, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. That's powerful. Words are powerful. And I hope that we are able to come together, not as colors, red, blue, whatever the other middle ground is, but we're able to come together as Americans. And we're able to say, you know what? I don't agree with you, but that's okay. We'll be okay. We can do this, in my opinion, as a country, because we're not getting any younger. And it's a difficult time for all of us. For all of us. Thank you. Going through these. Anything else, Karen? Am I missing something?
No, I would just add that just remain hopeful that Nancy will be found, that justice will be done, that porch guy will be discovered. It's going to take some time, but we're optimistic.
Yeah, I don't see that. This is an interesting thought. I don't see the cartel taking it out on Nancy if Nanos owed a debt. It's too complicated for them. And, you know, it really is. I've heard, different theories. I've heard people say that, it's some guy from Mexico that was hired up by the cartels, et cetera. Too complicated. Even the cartels don't want to deal with Nancy Guthrie.
Or Nanos.
Or Nanos. Yeah, Nanos wouldn't be here if that was a problem. Totally love this channel. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kelly.
We love you. We're grateful for you.
Not just a bit good. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Pebbles.
We got one more.
And Sandra, thank you so much.
Did I miss anything, hon?
If you did, we'll catch it on the next show.
We will. All right, everybody. What a great time we've had here with you guys. We got a lot happening this week, so expect to see us this week, and continue to keep the faith, press forward. Don't look in the rearview mirror. Nothing back there. Everything's ahead of us. Biaka mai. Stay the course, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yep. Have a good night, everybody.
Aloha, everybody. Continue to take care of one another, and pray for Nancy, pray for Savannah and the rest of the family. Aloha.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down. We're going away. Yeah, we're going away. You and me. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. It's always been you. always been you, Jesus. It's always been you, Emmanuel. I know I am loved so. Now I remember to see bright. It's always been you, Jesus. It's always been you, Emmanuel. It's always been you, Jesus. It's always been you, Emmanuel. Who saves me from trouble? Who can see me truly? It's always been you.
Somehow I noticed you with your back against the wall, broken hearted from before. I see it in your eyes. Somehow I long for you at the start of something new. Was it just a light I knew from way before? Oh, why am I running from the light? Oh, why am I starting every fight? Oh, I wanna make it alright. Oh, why can we make it through the night? Somehow you pulled me in without saying anything. Didn't know what it would bring standing next to you. Somehow I felt it then, like a door I thought I closed. All the love I had opposed was sweet you. Oh, why am I running from the light? Oh, why am I starting every fight? Oh, I wanna make it alright. Oh, why can we make it through the night? Oh, why am I turning from the light? Oh, why am I drawing every line? Oh, why wanna get us back in time? Oh, why can we make it through the night? Why can't we make it through the night?